नमस्कारः। अद्य अस्ति वार्तावल्याम् एतादृशः विशिष्टातिथिः। यः हि फ्रांस देशे लब्धजन्म, परञ्च भारतवर्षं प्रति विशेषरूपेण आकृष्टः। अतः एतेन विपुलभारतस्य भव्यतमस्य च ऐतिह्यस्य विषये अभिज्ञातुं स्वकीयं सम्पूर्णं जीवनं कृतम् अस्ति समर्पितम्। स्वागतं प्रोफेसर मिशेल दनिनो वर्य। नमस्कारः। प्रोफेसर मिशेल वर्य, भारतवर्षं प्रति कथं भवान् आकृष्टः अभवत् इति अस्मिन् सन्दर्भे अस्मान् बोधयतु सर्वप्रथमम्।
As a teenager living in France, without any particular difficulty, my family was very harmonious and happy. I was doing well in my studies and so on. But I was feeling a deep dissatisfaction and almost an anxiety at the lack of direction that the Western development, intellectual developments, religious developments, cultural developments have been unable to give to human life. And I had those big questions, which many people, of course, ask themselves: what is the use of all of this? Where does it go? Why are we, having those brilliant cities with people working from dawn to dusk, and again the next day, and again the next day, and basically not knowing what is the purpose of it all? This started a quest, and I kept reading as a teenager here and there, and I came upon collections of, let us say, sayings of Indian masters, that including, for example, it included Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda, Ramana Maharshi, and several more. And I felt immediately that there's something very central, very essential, at least to me and from my perception, and I wanted to go deeper.
प्रोफेसर मिशेल वर्य, भवता ऋग्वेदे वर्णितायाः सरस्वती नद्याः विषये प्रबल जिज्ञासावशात् गंभीरम् अनुसन्धानम् अपि कृतम् अस्ति। तत्सम्बद्धं भवता द लॉस्ट रिवर ऑन द ट्रेल ऑफ द सरस्वती इति पुस्तकम् अपि विलिखितम् अस्ति। भवतः अनुसारेण सरस्वती नद्याः अस्तित्व संदर्भे किम् अस्ति प्रबलं प्रमाणम्?
So the pramana, the proof, is actually there in the texts. First of all, we have a long continuity in the text, successive texts of descriptions of that river in a very consistent manner, and a manner that depicts the decline of the river, gradual decline, ultimate extinction. So in the Rig Veda, it's a full river, Maho Arna Sarasvati, of mighty waters. And by the time of the Brahmanas, already the river has broken up somewhere, because there is a point called Vinashana, the loss of the river, the disappearance of the river, sometimes also called Adarshana in other texts. So something has happened to it. And the evolution continues. By the time of the Mahabharata, we find that the river gets lost in the sands of the desert. And though it reappears at other places, for example, Balarama conducts a pilgrimage from Prabhas, which may not be the same location exactly as today's Prabhas Patan. And upstream, all the way to the Shivalik hills. So there is a consistency of text. It is not at all a mythical river. We can speak of a mythical Saraswati only at Prayag, where, yes, artificially, as a kind of cultural device to remember the river, Saraswati was pinned down. There you may say it is mythical. But in Western India, from Shivaliks across Haryana, Rajasthan, Indian Punjab, and ultimately all the way to the Rann of Kutch, there is no need of proof, because the text is quite clear. And this is what led, in the 19th century, we always think it's a recent discovery, not at all. What led a number of scholars, Sanskritists, geographers, Indologists, and beginning with a French geographer in 1855, Louis Vivien de Saint-Martin, who wrote a book on the geography of Northwest India based on the Rig Vedic hymns, where he identified this river clearly located by Rig Veda in the Nadistuti Sukta between Yamuna and Satluj. Satluj is Shatudri. And Shatadru rather. Shatadru will become Shatudri later. And clearly he identified, because of some recent topographic surveys by British military officials, this French geographer put together the textual evidence from Rig Veda, the recent topographic surveys, and what he called a recent tradition, or rather a continuous tradition, which still had a small Saraswati river already listed in British maps in the 18th century, clearly marked across a dozen maps in the 19th century. And he said all these three things together show us that this is the relic, this large bed identified in Haryana, Punjab, Rajasthan, called the Ghaggar River, and Hakra in what is today Pakistan, the continuation of the same wide and mostly dry bed, must have been the relic of the Vedic Saraswati River. So this was uttered in 1855, and immediately all Indologists, Sanskritists like Max Muller, archaeologists like Alexander Cunningham, and many others accepted this identification because it was quite obvious in a way, and therefore I consider that we do not need a proof. The river did exist. Why should a continuity of Indian texts across perhaps 2,000 years invent such a river and even its description of a declining and ultimately disappearing river? It would not make any sense. So this is very briefly the story of the river and its identification. And of course, I have gone into much deeper details, and we have now a number of geological studies to also confirm that there was a very powerful river, but its evolution is a little more complex than what had been earlier thought. So that is another development.
Professor Michel वर्यो अहं भवतः एतद् अपि मन्तव्यं ज्ञातुम् इच्छामि यत् संसाराय भारतीयस्य गणितशास्त्रस्य खगोलशास्त्रस्य च कियत् अवदानं भवान् पश्यति?
Indian civilization interacted a lot with China, with Southeast Asia, all the way to Japan. It interacted with Central Asia. It interacted with Mesopotamia, with Greece, with Egypt in a more limited way, and with the Roman Empire later on, and so on. So this is essential if we, and of course with the Arabic civilization still later. So we forget that these interactions work in complex ways. So sometimes, yes, there is a transmission very clearly from India. For example, the decimal number based on the zero, and zero as a number, which is the great advance of India, because some other civilizations had a kind of a zero, but they could not make it a workable number. It was India that integrated zero as a full-fledged number in the system. This must have happened about first or second century of the Common Era, or AD if you prefer. So this was a very clear gift from India which has been traced. If we take the overall contribution, even in China in the 8th century, there was an established translation bureau where Indian scholars, and we have one named Gautama, staying there in China and contributing to the translation of Indian texts of mathematics and astronomy into Mandarin, the language at that stage of Chinese development. And therefore, I find objectively that India was much more a giver than a receiver as far as science and technology is concerned.
Professor Michel Danino Varyo, Bhavata साकं विहितः संवादः निश्चयेन भारत विषये अनुसन्धानरतानाम् अन्येषां वैदेशिकानां च कृते भविष्यति अतीवः प्रेरणाप्रदः। अतः अहं भवते धन्यवादः करोमि पुनः पुनः। नमस्कारः।
धन्यवाद।